What is up, YouTube? Welcome back. We are here for 2021 Legends. I'm going team by team, giving you 5 or 6 legends per team of guys I want to see in the game. I have no inside info. I don't know who's going to be in the game. These are just the players I'd like to see. A team like the Yankees, which we're doing today, they're going to get 6. There are no two ways about that. That's such a rich organization that 6 probably isn't even enough. But that's why I stream these on Twitch, twitch.tv/sport. You can come out, participate in them live. I'll turn to my chat after this and see who they'd like to come through in the game on the Yankees in addition to the 6 that I talk about. So without further ado, let's get started. Whoop. There's the New York Yankees. Number 1, Joe Dimaggio. We're starting it off with a little bit of an obvious one. Of course, we got Mickey Mantle. We've got Babe Ruth. We've got Lou Gehrig. The obvious next guy there is probably Joe Dimaggio. And so while I am putting a bit of a focus on the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, I couldn't ignore Joe. I mean, he's insane. He'd be a tremendous player. 1939 MVP when he hit 381, including 403 versus lefties. That's a 125 contact versus lefties easily, with an 1119 OPS and 30 homers. He was truly insane. You guys know he was an absolute badass. 3 MVPs, 5 years over a 345 average, 2 home run titles. That's that contact and power. Again, I mentioned this in the Boston video. I call that a quad 4 when they have over 100 in both contacts and both powers. Dimaggio has some quad 4 years without a doubt. 2 home run titles, 56 game hit streak that everyone knows about, of course, too. Don't sleep on the defense, though. Second in outfield assists with 153 from 1936 to 1951, and he missed 3 years for the war. He spotted the league 3 years, and only one guy could pass him. And I don't remember who it was because I didn't write it down when I made this list. I tried to commit it to memory, and I failed. But only one guy could pass him, and he said, here's 3 years. I'm going to go fight in the war. That's insane. Silver 1951 is his only non-diamond year. If you go look at it, he was so good that there's really only one non-diamond year, and it's a silver. So that'd be kind of cool that, you know, they would really only have diamonds to put out and then throw a little silver there maybe for some BR action for Joe Dimaggio. So he'd be an absolute monster in the game. And given, now, this probably isn't the right way to think about it because there is no necessary link between like Joe Dimaggio and the other legends for the Yankees that I mentioned. But it just seems like given how well they've done getting the cream of the crop of Yankees legends, it feels like Joe's next. I don't know. Maybe they've tried and it's too difficult and it's not happening. But I swear, it seems like we get a new Yankee legend that's at the top of the heap every year. And we got, 2 this year with Mo and Mantle. Given that, Joe D seems to be on the horizon. I hope. I think it'd be a lot of fun, and he's awesome. And for the younger folks that maybe aren't as familiar with him, maybe know the name, they'd get to learn just how awesome he is. I know there's some younger folks in my Twitch chat who've talked about how they knew Mickey Mantle and all that, but they didn't really understand his true greatness until they started using his card and maybe looking him up on Baseball Reference and Fangraphs to understand the magnitude of his career. Next up is, come on, I'm gonna include him. I'm gonna include Derek Jeter. Get real. Like, I'm not gonna do it. 1999 was his best season, or at least I think it would turn into his best season for an MLB The Show card. 349 average, 989 OPS, 24 homers, 19 steals. Has that power, speed, contact going to be his driving force with some decent power, solid speed. They'd probably gas the defense, but they shouldn't. Okay, because he's not a good defender. Stop it, Yankees fans. And if you cite Gold Gloves, I know you're capping because you don't know what you're talking about. Because Gold Gloves don't mean anything. Because Gold Gloves back in the day, and I'm just talking in the 90s even, that back in the day, early 2000s, meant you were a good hitter. That's right. A Gold Glove Defensive Award meant you were a good hitter. How ass backwards is that? It's so stupid, but that's what it was. They're much better now because they're based in defensive metrics. I think you can trust Gold Gloves of today much more than you ever could in previous years. And simple fact is Derek Jeter was not that good at defense. So maybe for his signature series, they could gas it a little bit, and I really wouldn't complain. But for some of these individual seasons, his defense should be pretty mediocre, okay? But enough crapping on him. He was an elite player. He was a true legend. One below average season from 1996 to 2012, 313 average in that time, and 11,844 plate appearances. Say what you want about him. And again, if you want to critique the defense, I'm here for it. But you cannot say that he's overrated to the degree that he wasn't a legend player, right? He might be overrated defensively, but overall as a player, he was not. And his 3 World Series runs with a 976 OPS or higher include a 344, 432, 563 in 2009. So there's going to be a good postseason card there. You can go diamond, gold, and silver despite the mediocre glove. There's just a lot of stuff that you can do with the Derek Jeter card. And of course, he is a legend for them in the highest form of the word, and getting him in the game would please a lot of fans because they grew up watching him. A lot of the game players of MLB The Show absolutely revere him the way they do, like a Ken Griffey Jr. and all that. So Jeter would be fun to have in the game. I'd love to. I love to tweak Yankees fans about his glove and everything, but you got to give him his due. And the fact that he was so elite in the playoffs, that he could basically stay himself when the lights were the brightest, the pitchers were the best, and the games were the toughest, speaks to how great he was. So, don't get it twisted. There are a few things that are a little bit there are aspects that are overrated, but his overall play was tremendous, and Derek Jeter was a badass. Next up is Bernie. Burn, baby, burn. Bernie Williams. Awesome outfielder. Also defense a little bit on the lower side, but that's okay because there's a lot of hitting to go around with him. 1998, he hit 339 with a 997 OPS, 26 homers, 15 steals. Pretty similar to that 99 season from Jeter. So you could get, if you got both of them in there, you get that power-speed combo with them, or that contact power-speed combo, let's call it. Every aspect of their game is there except for the premium defense, but that's okay if you can kind of hide him in left field. He played mostly center field, but hide him in left with kind of a mediocre arm. I will say, overall, his defensive metrics probably are going to shine better than Jeter's. It's the arm that keeps him from being top of the class defensively. But again, offense is what you're really looking for here. His peak from 94 to 2002, he hit 319 with 404 OBP, 525 slug, with 23 homers and 12 steals per season. That's what he averaged from that time. That's insane. That's a hell of a run right there. He's a fringe Hall of Fame candidate. I don't think he quite makes the cut, but I certainly think he deserves recognition for how good he is. He does kind of have a career that runs the gamut with diamond, gold, silver, and bronze potential, so there's a lot of cards that they can make for him. With Jeter, with all three of these guys, actually, they're career Yankees, so there isn't really any diversity across different squads, but at least you could make some different cards with Jeter and with Williams. As I mentioned with Joe D, really only the one silver year there, but that's okay. He still should be in the game. Next up is one that I think will be a little bit slept on in general. I don't know that everyone understands the greatness of Thurman Munson, particularly if you're of a certain age and younger. Maybe you just don't know much about him. Maybe you've heard the name, you heard that he had an untimely death and all that, but you might not understand how great he was. And this is a case where the context numbers really help you understand how good he was. Because when I tell you that his 1976 MVP, he had a 769 OPS, you're probably unmoved by that and probably wondering how the hell he won MVP. But look at that far column there on the right. 126 WRC plus. That stands for weighted runs created plus. And again, the plus means that it's on a scale where 100 is average, and then every point above is how much better you were than league average. He was 26% better than league average with the bat while being elite behind the dish at catcher. So, that doesn't scream MVP offensively, but it's damn good still at 126, especially when you consider that he was the leader of the team and awesome defensively. So I think that that's what's going to carry the day for Munson, is that he be an elite defending catcher with quality batting average and decent hitting. Maybe he'd be one of those cards that has a glitchy swing that plays above his numbers too. He didn't strike out very much, and the lowest WRC plus that he ever had was 97, which is barely below league average. So he would probably have some gold, silver, bronze potential as well. He was better versus lefties with a 304 average throughout his career, but he had a solid career against righties, hitting 282. So average is his driving force offensively, but defense at catcher is what makes Thurman Munson such a badass. Next up, Paul O'Neill. This will be a fun one, man. I like Paul O'Neill. I like him in the booth too, by the way. I watch a lot of Yankees games, and MLB Network shows a lot of theirs from the Yes Network, so you get to hear their guys that they have in the booth. And Paul O'Neill's pretty fun. He was known as a bit of a hothead when he played. Maybe that's why I like him so much. Look up Paul O'Neill kick, and you'll get a great video clip of him literally kicking the ball back into the infield. It's hilarious. He had a strike cut. The strike shortened 1994 season was his best. He hit 359, which led the American League with 21 homers in just 103 games. So if they had played the full year, he was going to have a hell of a season. He was probably pissed off about the season ending. Probably tipped over a few Gatorade jugs just because of that. But he had a career 120 WRC plus, 20 homers, 10 stolen bases per 600 plate appearances. That's a hell of a player. 6th in outfield assists with 102 from 1988 to 99. So he's going to be a right fielder there with quality defense, a huge arm, good contact numbers, solid power, and a little bit of speed chipped in. One of those cards that I think would be, hey, I kick ass with Paul O'Neill. Do you guys use him? Not somebody that everyone immediately gravitates to, but the people who use him would love him. I think he'd fit that kind of realm. So I'd love to see Paul O'Neill in the game. Excellent first name, too. So cool. Love that. Last one is Andy Pettitte, starting pitcher, of course, from the 2000s. Now, this is where you got to look at the rate numbers as well, because he does not have overwhelming strikeout totals, but we're going to get into that in just a moment. 2003 postseason, I think, would actually be his best card, where he had a 2.10 ERA, a 1.28 WHIP, 34 strikeouts in 34 and a third. That would be a diamond card. Now, I do mention the ERA. ERA doesn't show up on the card. I just show that to let you understand how well he was pitching. Even though the whip was a little bit high, he was doing his job to get out of those jams in the postseason in 2003. Now they ended up losing that World Series there to the Marlins, but not because of anything Pettitte did. In 2005 with Houston, he had a 2.39 ERA, 103 WHIP, 116 strikeout percentage plus, again 16% better than average, and a 55 walk percentage plus. So he was 45% better than league average. So you're going to have great BB numbers, great stamina, a deep arsenal from the left side. I think there's a lot of gold, silver, bronze potential. The diamond seasons would not be that plentiful, but he would still, there's enough to put at least a diamond or two out there, and he'd be a fun card because you'd have New York and Houston and a bunch of different cards. And so I think Andy Pettitte would be fun to have in the game, despite the fact that he's not one of those overpowering pitchers. Kind of like a Mark Burley, right? If we got Mark Burley in the game, we can get Andy Pettitte in the game. So now I turn it over to my Twitch chat to see who they might be interested in seeing from the Yankees. Now, the first comment I see mentions that no Yogi. Yogi's been in the game, so I didn't include him because he's already been in the game. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't include anybody who's been in the game before, but specifically with him, I chose to highlight 6 guys from the Yankees who haven't been in, because Yogi was in for like 3 or 4 years, to be honest. Mark Teixeira is a great call. Love that. Alfonso Soriano is very high on my list of desired players. I mentioned in the Boston video that Pedro Martinez is my number 1. Alfonso Soriano might be my number 2. I love him. The high socks, the obscene power, the 40-40 season. I would love to see Soriano get in the game. That would be amazing. Hideki Matsui is great. Hey, I'm not going to mention your second name. Look him up. Turns out he's a total scumbag. Roger Maris would be interesting. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Oh, David Boomer Wells. He would be a lot of fun. He goes across a lot of different teams, too. Adam, your first name I'm not going to say. He's going to be on a different squad of the same city. Phil Rizzuto, Bobby Mercer, going old school there. I like that. Colin, Mike Mussina was in the Baltimore video, and so I didn't want to double up because New York is so rich, but I did mention that Mike Mussina would have an elite diamond with the Yankees, so I definitely agree there. But they're so rich in talent that we could probably do 10, 15 more names just from the Yankees alone, because not only are they great perennially, but their history runs so deep. So, some of us love to hate them, and I count myself among them. I'm a Yankee hater when they're the evil empire because of how good they are. Not for any I don't have real hatred for them. It's kind of like a damn you, why you guys so good. But I will say, as a Tigers fan, couldn't really take care of the Tigers when they came to the playoffs. We did pretty well against them. Unfortunately, it didn't turn into a World Series either of those 2 years. But handling the Yankees was pretty nice in 06 and 12. But I will leave the rest of the Yankee names to the YouTube chat. If you've got some names in there, drop them down. I try to reply to as many comments as I can. I appreciate y'all watching. Hit a thumbs up. Drop a subscribe. Again, we're going to be going team by team here. So if you're looking forward to a particular team, make sure you're just sticking to the team in question in the comments, because I'm probably going to mention the legend for your other team down the line. So the next up will be the Tampa Bay Rays and the Toronto Blue Jays to close out the AL East. And then we'll get into the AL Central. We're going in the order of the way MLB The Show lists the games. So it's AL East, West, East, Central, West, and then the NL East, Central, West. So that'll carry us through the winter, not to mention my Golds and Silver flashback series that's going to be starting with Baltimore very soon as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate you.